So this is pretty interesting. This is a video that has been shared a lot and is very viral on Twitter, but it's actually a look back at the time that CNN praised General Soleimani, Qassem Soleimani, a top military commander in Iran, because he was fighting ISIS. That's something that Iran did. They fought ISIS. They were very, obviously they did not like ISIS and vice versa, and so they would fight ISIS. And let it take it away.
Iranian General Qassem Soleimani, the leader of Iran's elite special operations Quds Force, when Iraqi troops pushed back Islamic State militants in the key town of Jerf al-Sakhr late last month, Iranian state media and Iraqi news websites suggested Soleimani masterminded the victory. As military advisor, Soleimani is also credited with leading Shia militias and Iraqi troops in key wins against Islamic State forces, advancing on villages surrounding the capital, Baghdad. The Islamic State terrorists sought to surround Baghdad, but they failed in reaching their ominous goals thanks to Iran's support, said senior Iranian military official Esmail Qani on Sunday.
So here's a clip of them obviously praising him for basically, stopping ISIS and basically fighting off ISIS. And Iran did do a lot of fighting off ISIS. And if you are to, invade and, overthrow the Ayatollah and the regime that exists in Iran, that's the biggest gift to ISIS possible, because if you destabilize the region, it's going to give them more ammunition. They're going to have another area to expand in. It's going to give them a lot of people to be recruited, essentially. And it'll give them more area to take over, obviously, and more people to recruit. And so that's another reason why invading would be absolute disaster and horrifyingly bad with insane repercussions. You take the Iraq War, and turn this one into Iraq 3.0, basically, or 10.0, actually. Not even 3.0 puts it at what it could be. But what's really interesting about the United States history is the U.S. does this with a lot of people. It's very odd. They do this with like a lot of historical figures. So some of them being, you guys know OBL, Osama bin Laden. You've seen that newspaper article where, it calls him, like a freedom fighter. And then obviously we know what happened with Osama bin Laden. Obviously they gave him weapons and stuff to fight the Soviets off, to fight the Russians off. Manuel Noriega is another guy, the guy who was president of Panama. He was like the U.S.'s picked guy, the CIA picked a guy, and then they took him out. And it's just like, it's weird that they do this, And there are other examples of that happening in history as well. Not just what happened in Panama and with OBL. But there are many of examples of this. Saddam was another one. Saddam Hussein was another one. So, it's very odd to see this kind of thing happen. But it's important that, we don't succumb to the blood-sucking warmongers and the neocons who are trying to goad us into another war, trying to escalate us into another war that has no real end. There's no way we can fucking get out. There's no real achievable victory. There will be millions of people who die on both sides. It can possibly lead to World War III. It could lead to global conflicts, okay? And Iran is so much larger and has so much more in terms of population and influence than Iraq did. And they're much more hardline than the Iraqis were. If you remember, when they invaded, Saddam's army just quit. So, this would be like an actual all-out war. And that would be horrifying for human beings as a whole, and we need to avoid that. Now, Mike Pompeo is the guy who's the puppet controlling Trump. There was a report came out that basically said that he's been lobbying Trump to do this for like over 6 months now. So he's the guy who's really influencing him. And so there are blood-sucking neocons who are in his administration who are, puppeteering him essentially to do these kinds of things, which is a very, very scary thing. But we need to make sure that this country does not go to war with Iran, because it would be absolutely devastating with, irreversible consequences.